Welcome, everyone. My name is Allison Merker Garner, and I am the creator and author of Musical Minds. And this video is on one of my ebooks. It's the Multicultural Songs, Dances, and Games for Children. And I have that available in violin, viola, and cello. So let's look at the book. And just a word about the materials in here. These are materials that come out of the multicultural tradition. And we will look at the table of contents to see what all is available. This is the violin book, as you can see. The other two look the same. So we have different categories. We have the songs, chants, and movement for pre-instrumentalists before they start an instrument. Now, these tunes are from the folk tradition. What does that mean? It means that you may know them in a different format. Folk music is constantly changing. It reflects the society in which it's in. So if it is something that's being used for educational purposes, like this book, it may be in a different format than you're used to seeing it or hearing it somewhere else. So that's the first thing about folk music. It's never going to be the same way twice. The second thing about folk music is I want to give a nod to is originality. It's original format. A lot of these tunes, when I do give teacher training on this book, I will show the different ways you might see that particular example on the playground, in Jamaica, in the classroom, in an Orff classroom, that kind of thing. But once again, I emphasize, I'm not an ethnomusicologist, so I'm not interested or educated in being able to give you field recordings of these tunes. Know that they were originally in probably a different form, and they've evolved during the years, and whatever culture has absorbed it. So that said, let's look at the book. We have in the table of contents the pre-instrumentals, the beginning, like pre-twinkle and beginning of book 1 level. We have intermediate instrumentalists. And as you see, we're getting less and less out of the nursery rhymes and the English and American tunes, and we're going now more into multicultural. And the final section is songs, chants, stories, and movement from around the world. So these are multicultural. List of illustrations. The illustrations in this book were a lot of fun to put together. Most of them are from the original edition of some fairy tale. So they are in the public domain. They're old enough to be. Preface in the introduction. Now we get into the book itself. I have an introduction for every section, all 4 sections, as to what the goals are. What do we want our kids at this level to be getting, and what we would like for them to experience. This involves not just their technical skill on the instrument, but their general music knowledge and connection with the art, and their developmental level. For pre-instrumentalists, a lot of those kids are 2, 3, 4, and 5. They're still developing a sense of self. They're learning how to self-regulate. A lot of the activities that I suggest in here support that developmental level, give them opportunities to be able to learn that skill, opportunities for parents to work with those kids and learn how to work together before they start an instrument, ways of being able to do musical things like auralize, like imitate, like being able to develop finger dexterity. So every tune or example is presented in its folk music form with the activity that's normally done with it. And then I have suggestions on how these can be related to either a group class or a private lesson, either away from the instrument or with the instrument. Then I have a section for most of these that are called extensions. So even though this is in a part of the book that's for pre-instrumentalists, if you want to go back, and I often do, use the old examples with students that they already know and approach it a new way. So you're learning a new concept through this old example. Then that's what this is. So this is for intermediate, in this case, violin students, since this is the violin book. But introducing the concept of a bourdon and an ostinato, and so forth. So you will see in this book the presentation of the tune, the original activity or dance, movement, play, whatever it is, accompanying that, and then ways of using it, either in a group class or in a private lesson that develops not just the musician, but the whole musician, the child, way of establishing well-being, ways of expressing with and without the instrument, being able to think musically as well as play. So as you see, I do use some solfege, but it's not a requirement that teachers use that or students use that. I find it useful, but that's up to you. Integrating mind-body concepts into how you approach and teach in these early stages. Clapping games, finger plays. Okay. So that's an example of the first section. The second section, here's our introduction and what our goals are for the musician and for the string player, in this case, the violinist, and how those pieces that they're learning in Suzuki correlate to here. And a lot of these tunes are great, and the rhythms too, the chants, to prepare for some of the Suzuki pieces. So if you have a student that's not practicing regularly or listening regularly, they're stepping stones to being able to focus on one thing at a time. And then the child is progressing and feeling mastery and is prepared when they get to lightly row or go talent roadie to play it well. So first we have the rhythm Mississippi Hot Dog, the first variation in the Suzuki books. Things to do with that. Short, long, short. Alabama Gal is another one that has that. And this one has it too. And then we have the Run Susie rhythm. And the 16th note rhythm. And the 6/8 meter. So we're starting to get into pitch here. So we start with the open strings. With who's that? So a perfect fifth. The ostinato and bourdon accompany most of these tunes from here on out. The ostinato is a repeated rhythmic pattern that can be done on the instrument, on an open string, or on a keyboard, or on a unpitched percussion instrument, like a woodblock. And the bourdon is the key center. Half notes usually, but it doesn't have to be. Of A major would be A and E. D major would be D and A. G major would be G and D. And once again, that could be done on the instrument, or it could be done on an Orff instrument or on the keyboard. So what this does is it provides not just a steady beat, but it provides a sense of meter and rhythm. So for subdivision and doubling of the beat, there's no wiggle room. You have to really listen to the ostinato for that. And the bourdon is the pitch center. So now looking at these tunes, I do want to say that I have added an appendix to this book that has a lot of these tunes set for the instrument that is highlighted, that the book is for, and for the other instruments. So if you wanted to have a violin ensemble, you could do that. If you wanted to collaborate with a viola or a cello, you would be able to do that. So these books can be used together to have multi-instrument ensembles. If you'd like to use it for reading or just for ensemble practice. So just so you are aware of that. Now, moving through our second section here, we get into the intermediates. Okay. In the intermediate section, this is kids that are in the late book one on up, as far as you want to go, because there are extensions for these. So we broaden our key signature and our meter, and we're getting into more creative response in here. So here's our ostinati and the bourdon to rom sam sam, and then we get to do articulation mode. We're being introduced to an anacrusis for the first time, the perfect fourth low so to do, like Happy Farmer or Hunter's Chorus, something like that. We're getting that introduced, and these songs can be sung, they can be played at this point. This is a song that has prompts. So I have the prompts in there that you can use with the children. And then canons to be sung or played. All right. So moving on to the last section, which is folk songs from around the world. Now we've had some multicultural things already, but this is exclusively so, and that's what's being highlighted. So the key centers and the rhythms, some of them don't work really well with a bourdoon because they aren't in our Western system. And so that is like this one here is one of those. So we have an ostinato, but there's no bourdoon. And I still have suggestions for activities, ways of using these tunes and these examples in your teaching. And moving on to the end here, we end with a couple of the Native American tunes. And we have two folk tunes. This is the house that Jack built, or folk tales. This is the house that Jack built, and then the gingerbread boy, I think. Yeah. And I've set these to music so that you can say the words and then you have cues for the, in this case, the phrase to be sung, or here where you actually have instruments that are playing, and certain instruments represent certain characters in the story. It's a little more complicated. And you've got a couple of sung parts. So that takes a little bit more doing. And the magic melodic patterns, which are referred to within the book, are good for preparation for scales. They also are great for preparation for improvising melody and harmony. Some of these are good harmony ones. These are all the examples in the book and what all they have. So if you're looking for Mississippi hot dog rhythm tunes, you can go through the entire book and find them. If you're looking for a certain interval, you can go through the book and find them. So these are useful resources for you if you're looking for all the Spanish tunes, right? Or all the movement activities. They're all in there. And then here, the finger patterns, the rhythm and bowing patterns. Okay. Resources, yes. And this one does not have the appendix that have chamber pieces, but each one of these has that as well. So this is multicultural songs, dances, and games for children, a resource for teachers, ebook. It's available on my Kajabi platform, and it is in violin, viola, and cello.